Hello, this is Christy. Today I have a treat for you. I'm going to build a flip book in Camtasia, and it's going to be customizable to some degree, and we will be using Camtasia 2022 because of the one function that was introduced in Camtasia 2022. You're going to see that we need to use to create this. It's going to be a great effect at the end, a very nice flip book that you can add extra pictures in, extra pages. You can customize the image inside, and it's going to look very realistic with lighting effects and shadows and everything. So let's have a look how we can do this. First of all, let me explain why this is possible now in Camtasia 2022. It was kind of possible in 21, but you needed to kind of do a lot of extra work just to get this to work. The reason was rotation. So what I talk about this is, look, if I have this picture here that I bring in, and the effect of this flipbook is going to hinge on our ability to rotate this image in 3D space. What I mean by that is, you can see the Y rotation axis here. So if I rotate this, you can see the image flips like this. Well, that was all nice and good. In previous versions, you could only rotate an object around its center. So you can see right here in the center, if I zoom in, you can see this is the rotation point or pivot point. So in previous versions, you could not change the point. And what I mean by this is, if I want to rotate this page like in a flipbook, obviously I can't rotate it in around the center. It needs to rotate along one of the sides. Well, now this is possible. Hold down the Control key and you can move the rotation to where you want it right there. Move the rotation center. So now watch this. When I rotate again, you can see that this page turns around that side, right? So that is what we needed. Now, in previous versions, it was possible to actually make a copy of this. So let's suppose that I didn't move the center of rotation. You would have to have used these. So if you're in Camtasia 2021 or 2020 or previous, if you want to achieve the same, you technically need to use two copies of this, and then you make one of them invisible using the opacity, and you select both and you group them, and now look, when you rotate, the page flips around just like before. But of course, you're having to use this extra image in there to achieve the same effect, which is a bit tedious. Okay, so we're not going to do this today. We're going to just do this in Camtasia 2022, which allows you to move the center of rotation wherever you like on an object. So just to plan things, I have actually created a bunch of square images. Here they are. I've got a cover image as well, so we're going to use a cover image, and a bunch of square images I got from Pexels. You can see here where they are coming from in the ID on those websites if you want to look them up. But anyway, it doesn't matter which images. You can use any images, and in fact, we're going to create a way for you to replace the images on the fly, no problem. One thing I need to emphasize, Camtasia is terrible at replacing images inside of a group or inside of an asset that is already built. Okay, I'm sorry, TechSmith, this is the reality. When you replace an image using the quick properties, it will change the geometry of the image if the image coming in is different from the one that you used to design the initial asset with. That's the reason why, what I'm saying, and by the way, I'm going to have this asset ready for you to buy if you want to buy it from my shop with pre-made assets. But if you're going to build this yourself, make sure that all the images you're going to use have the same exact size. And I don't mean just the aspect ratio, because these are all square. They also must have the same size. In this particular example, the ones that I'm using here, if you look down there, 1080 by 1080 pixels. That is all. If I change the images, you see they all have the same size. That's the only constraint you're going to need, because Camtasia is going to just move the image all over the place when you replace an image inside of an asset that is different from the one used to create the initial one. So everything is kind of fixed in there, and the way that the Camtasia assesses the size and the geometry of the images going in is not maintained. So if you put a different image, you would expect that if, okay, maybe it's still a square image, but it's larger or smaller, and Camtasia is going to stretch it. Well, no, it doesn't. So this is a word of warning. If you're building this, then make sure that the images going in are the same exact ones you use when you build this. So just a side note for you right there. So let's build this thing. So the planning is this. We want to have a flipbook that turns the pages from the left side onto the right side. So we are going to add this image to the canvas. Make sure the project size is the one you desire. So I'm going to just stay with HD here, but of course you can go 4K or whatever different size, and so on. So I'm going to put this in here and make it slightly smaller, like maybe like this, because in the end I'm going to have a flipbook that is open and it has two sides. So just to copy this and paste it right there, select both of them and make sure everything is right in the center of the canvas. You can move stuff later, but that just to build it, to avoid any problems, we're just going to move it and put it in the center. I'm going to delete the one page on the left, and to make things a bit easier, I'm going to change my canvas to something lighter colored. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this gray. Again, you can go back and change this later, no problem. So this is my image, and what I want to happen is the image stays there. So assuming we're starting with the cover and then it goes on the side, and then you see a new page underneath. Well, this is the first thing you need to figure out is, how am I going to flip this? Well, like I said, we're going to have to create an animation for this. And I'm going to just say, assuming that an image stays on the screen for a while and then it gets flipped, I'm going to assume about maybe 3-4 seconds to stay on the screen and then it flips. Okay, so if you look on the timeline here, I'm going to go to around the 3-second mark. Again, you can move this and add an animation, Shift and A, or you can go to animations right there, go to animations and drag a custom animation to the timeline on this image. So before we continue, make sure you save. Okay, so I saved. Make sure you save often. So this is my animation right here, and I want to flip this. Okay, so before I add the animation, we need to delete this animation now. And we need to move the center of rotation like I explained. So zoom in, and if it makes it easy for you, just use a grid or something. I have some grids, but sometimes I just use one of these lines and put it here and make sure that it snaps into place. And I'm going to use this as a guide, right? So I'm grabbing this and I'm making that locked so I don't move it by mistake. Zoom in as close as you need, and I'm going to move this center of rotation from the center of the image all the way to the left, right? So hold down the control key. You notice it becomes movable. So now you move this along this line and just place it right there on the edge, right on the edge. Okay, so now zoom back out, and we don't need this guide anymore, maybe. Or actually, I'm going to keep my guide because I'm going to have to make the left page. So here's the animation. Now we are free to add the animation back in, custom animation on there. And the animation is going to be this. We're going to move this 90 degrees along the y-axis, right? So the reason it's 90 and not 180 is because we have to have two parts of this. Although it looked like the page is turning in real life, the page from the left becomes the page on the right, and you see the other side. I can't control this and change the image on the flight in the middle of the animation. Plus, the new page that comes in has to be on top of the right page. And then when it moves to the left, it has to be on top of the left page. If I make two pages side by side as a single object, when I put the next one up, it's going to cover the other one that was already flipped. I don't know if this makes sense, but trust me, I've done this before, and you must have two elements. The page that starts on the right and flips 90 degrees, then you change the image and you have the page on the left, flips again 90 degrees, and then becomes the page on the other side. So I hope this makes sense. So let's now rotate this with this animation that we made. We'll rotate it along the y-axis 90 degrees. So you can use this to drag like that, or you can just type the numbers minus 90. Okay, minus 90, because it's going counterclockwise. So minus 90, here we go. We don't see it anymore because it's perfectly vertical, but that's fine. It's there. Okay, so if I move now the animation, you see my page is flipping to the center, right? There you have it. Now, if you feel like the page is moving too fast, of course, you can make the animation longer. It's still going to work. It's just going to be longer. And another tip, I advise you to change the animation easing from the in and out, which is by default in Camtasia. Right click on the animation and say enable easing to linear. The reason for that is you want the image to flip at the same speed from the start and then in the middle and then the other side. So we want to use a very simple, smooth animation. So now you can see it's moving quite nicely. In my opinion, it's a bit slow, so I'm going to make this animation a bit faster by shortening it. So that looks fine to me. Now, how long do you want that to stay on before you move? That is, maybe 5 seconds, as I said. So the image shows up, and maybe at this time, if you're using more pages, the other pages are flipping or whatever, and then at some point this one starts. Okay, one thing to note, you see that it needs to be exactly 90 degrees, but if I zoom in there, it's very hard to see, but you can probably see this very thin line. So Camtasia still shows me the object like a very 1 pixel thin or something like that. Now, if you have a problem with that, you can actually go 1 frame further from this animation. You just go 1 frame using the period key, and then you add another animation here, just a 1 frame, and you can turn the opacity to 0 for the object in that position. So there you have it. Now it disappears completely as soon as it reaches that point. Just something if you want it to be, to disappear. I'm going to leave it like that, I suppose. So now we have the first animation. There we have it. We've done it. Boom, it's done. Now, what's next? Well, we want to make this really nice and realistic, right? So one thing that maybe you want to change is to add motion blur to this. Make it blurry. We can add that later. It's fine. We don't have to add it now. Another thing I want to do is I want the page to become darker as it moves. Let's assume that the light of the whatever lights we have in this 3D scene that we're creating, let's assume that the light comes from the sort of the top, right? Which means as the page flips and it becomes vertical facing the camera, you're going to be making it darker because it's getting less light, okay? So on this, it means we need to go and grab one of the visual effects called color adjustment. Let's try that one. Drag it to this image. It becomes black and white for some reason. I'm going to just use the 0 here values for the default, so I don't have any like this. But on the side, I should have turned on global animation for this. And on the side, it's gonna have to become, let's suppose we're gonna go to the last frame there. And again, I'm going to make everything 0 and defaults here. Okay, so now there's nothing happening. It just becomes very saturated for some reason. I have to put the saturation to 0 like this. So there you go. Nothing is happening right now. I should have I should have turned on the global animation before. Anyway, turn it off now. So what we want is for the finish point, we want the value to be kind of dark, So I'm going to turn the brightness down to about minus 70 or so. So now maybe that's too dark. Okay, so I'm gonna do maybe minus 30, let's suppose. You need to make sure you're always on the end frame when you do that. So you can see now the object is nice and bright here, but it becomes darker as I flip the page. If I want it to be even darker, just put it on the last frame there and go even lower, maybe minus 50 or so. So there you go. Now the page becomes darker as it moves vertical. That's very nice. So we should remember that value there that we did. The value we put is minus 48 brightness. Okay, you can also reduce the contrast or whatever, you play with this, but when you're happy with this is your effect. Okay, so now add something else. Maybe I'm going to add a animation that shows me like a light, a glossy light going across. You may have seen this kind of effect when I did the 3D logo. Yeah, you turn an object and then you assume, you try and make it realistic, and you assume there is a light spot or a reflector or something on, pointing at the object or the image you're doing. So in that case, then I want to show that glossiness kind of moving when the object flips. It makes it look more realistic. So to do that, we're going to use a annotation that is a rectangle, just this white rectangle. And I'm going to make this one as tall as the scene. And I'm going to, let's suppose it's going to start here and move very quickly to the right side. Because when you flip, and if the light is here, the light appears to go that way. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, we're going to make this one quite transparent like this. We only need it to be kind of just a faded light, sort of beam on it, and just make it last for the whole duration for now. We're going to cut some of this stuff off because we don't need it to be that long anyway. This light will move, this light beam is going to move, as you see here, it's going to move this way. So I'm going to just go to the very end and add an animation right there, and move it all the way out of the scene. We can adjust the speed if it's too fast or too slow. So let's see what happens. There we have it. If I deselect, you can see the light sort of moving across the face of the page. Now, what I want to do is I want this to start maybe later, and it needs to start further, so outside of the object. You're going to see why. So you can see now it's moving across like this, and we don't care about it after that because we're not going to see it. So how can I constrain this so that you don't see it outside of the page? Okay, well, we need to use a copy of the page. Okay, Control C and place it at the start. All right, let's make some room. So this second copy of the image is going to function as my mask for this white beam of light, right? So I'm going to go to Visual Effects and apply Media Matte to this object there, not to the beam of light, to the object. So let's see. We don't see it. And now we do. Look at that right there. If it's too wide or whatever, you can always click on it and you can go select the global animation, so you make sure you're not changing the animation at any of the other ends, and you can just use the Control key and make it more narrow. So there you have it. It's more narrow like this. And just to, just to make things a little more realistic, I would like to add a motion blur to that. So click the motion blur effect, put it on the beam of light right there. You see now the edge is blurry and it's a nice touch of glossiness right there. Look, if you don't see it very well, you can maybe turn the opacity up like that. And there you have it. Beam of light across. Now, if you don't like the fact that it just goes vertical, maybe you're assuming the light is not there, you can actually maybe make it slanted or whatever. So it goes straight top left to bottom right. Freedom of creativity here. You can do whatever. Don't forget to save, of course. And there we go. There we go. So now this one kind of looks like the light is coming from the left, right? Doesn't it? So you see, look, as the page flips, the beam of light comes on the left. So of course, if you want this movement to start earlier, you can pull the start of the animation. You have completely freedom there to what's happening. There we have it. I kind of like it. All right, now, one thing that you need to make sure you pay attention to is these are now two images. There's a copy of the image in here. Now we could have done this with a rectangle, but I wanted to use the same image for the mask to make sure that it doesn't get shifted, or there's no differences in size or geometry to the real image, because then my beam of light or whatever I'm doing is going to spill over, and I don't like that. Okay, so there you have it. This is nice, and it just moves over. Another version of this effect with the dimming, becoming darker as you flip the page, could be something like the spotlight, which is an effect that was introduced in Camtasia 2022. The spotlight allows you to create a nice kind of reflector effect, and you can put that onto your image and have it kind of come in as you flip the page, which gives you a more gradual effect. But I don't want to complicate things in here, so that's perfectly fine. However, if you feel like it's coming in too fast, you can actually go in and change the easing of the effect of the color adjustment here, easing in. So maybe give it a couple of seconds before it starts to come in. Let's see what that does. Okay, so you see now my object is brighter for longer until it starts to become darker. Maybe even give it a bit of more time. Okay, anyway, you can play with that as long as you like. Anyway, so that's my page turning to the start. That's one page from the right. Okay, that's the right side page. We are happy with this. So now I want to create the other animation, right? The left. So starting from this point, going and creating the second page, right? So obviously, as you flip this page and you start to go the other way, you're going to have to see a different image, right? But for now, I'm just going to use this one image here. So what we want to do is we want to just select everything, make sure I unlock this guide for a second. Okay, so this is my whole asset. So assuming that my animation starts here with all this this space where it's just sitting there doing nothing, and then the animation flips, in theory, I am done with this object, right? So the page has flipped. I no longer see this because the next page comes in, which is the left side. So in theory, I could stop this object right here, right? So I can actually make a cut, shift and pull on the playhead, delete everything, and there you have it. My object ceases to exist here. That's the right side page. I hope that makes sense. So here we go. How do we make the other side? Well, first of all, I'm going to just select everything and group it, right? So that is you can right click on it and say rename group and call it right. That's the right page. And now let's make a copy of this. Control C and Control V right there. So technically this is where the left page begins. So to make things easier for us, I'm going to ungroup this so that we work outside of the group constraints with the clipping and all that stuff. I don't want to deal with that. So this animation right now is a copy of the first one. The problem is, if I rotate this object, it's going to actually flip the image for me 180 degrees, which is not what I want, because if I put the image in here the way that I expect the image to show on the left side, it's going to flip it. So I don't want to have to deal with that. So what I do is I'm actually going to remove all of the animations for now. Okay, so remove the animations on all the objects. So now my image is not going to be affected by anything, right? So what I want to do is I want to move this image to the left. Yeah, that's the final position it's going to be in, right? So I'm just going to grab it and move it there. It's going to basically align. That's my mask, by the way, which I can delete as well. So I moved the mask. No problem. Let's move this one and place it there. You notice Camtasia is still helping you with those alignment lines so that you know the image is aligned to the center of the canvas. The first thing we need to make sure is we turn this rotation handle, rotation center, we move it to the other side because my image is going to have to move along the other side now. So zoom in here. So I left my yellow guideline, Control key, and pick the rotation center and move it there at the very, very, very edge there. Right? You see it right there? That is my rotation corner, my rotation center right now. If I rotate, you can see it's going around that one. So here we go. Now I can probably get rid of this line. I don't need it anymore. And that's my shape with the light. We'll deal with that later. So the first thing we need to worry about is my image is going to start off now vertical. So it's going to start off at 90 degrees. So let's go here, 90. It's vertical, right? And it needs to end up being about, let's make this animation kind of long. Here we go. It's going to end up at 0. There we have it. So now the movement should be there. There it is. Very simple. Now, one thing we need to add again is the color correction to it, right? So I'm going to just activate the global animation so that I don't change both timeline. I change both keyframes the same way. Apply that effect. And in this case, it's going to be starting with brightness minus 50, I believe it was. And I think the easing is too fast. There we go. The easing was too slow. So now it ends up, it starts as a dark page because the light is, okay, it's not there. So now it becomes brighter. There you go, when it settles down. Very easy stuff, right? That's it. Cool. So another thing we did on the other one was move this light beam, right? So the light beam started going towards the right, and it has to come back in from the left and settle. Okay, so because I'm assuming that the light comes on and the light is in the same position, and then the page flips, and if it's glossy, then you're gonna have to start to see the light kind of fading in very quickly from the left. So here we go, shape, animation. All right, so now the image is going to end outside of the page, so shift and arrow key to just move it horizontally. And on the back here, I'm going to move it just outside of the page. Okay, maybe that's needs to be shifted because I want it to go faster. So it needs to go even outside from there. It needs to move quite fast. That's too late. And maybe slower. And to make the effect a bit more believable, I believe we need to maybe fade this in at some point because the light is not going to start right there, or maybe make it wider. So I'm going to make it wider to start with. So on the starting point, make it wider, and then it will get more narrow towards the end. So assuming there's a light on the top somewhere, I think this is pretty realistic. So we've got the light going out and then the light going in down there. And of course, like the other one, we need to add a mask. So I'm going to make a copy of this. Again, one of those points where you want the animation to start by being invisible, the page itself. You can zoom in, move one frame before, add an animation, which is going to be too long. So I really just need one frame of animation right there. I'm sure there's a better way to do this. So here we go. Just one frame of animation. Opacity on the object should be down. Okay, so now you technically shouldn't see it. And then you move one frame and then it shows up and it starts to animate right there. Okay, I think I'm happy with this. Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of this page because I want to use it as a mask for my light beam, right? So I'm going to place my playhead right there, copy the object, paste it right there, and put the media matte effect on it. And it now becomes a mask for what's underneath, which is the shape. So here we go. You can see the beam of light there. That looks very nice and realistic. And of course, the beam of light still has the blur, the motion blur on it. You can see it. You know, if the opacity bothers you, turn on global animation and turn it down or up to make sure you're doing it at both ends of the animation. Make sure you save. So you remember what I said before? I said, let's add motion blur to the page to make it even more realistic. So we can do that. Just motion blur on the image of the page, right? So now as it's moving, you can see it's kind of blurry on the around the edges, right? So there it is. It looks a bit more realistic. And let's actually go inside of the other group, the right page, and apply motion blur to that as well, right there, right? So now it should look very nice and blurry on that one as well. And of course, you know, if you want to select this and turn on global animation and turn the blur way, way up. So now it actually is even stronger. So there you have it. Depends how fast you're moving it, because the faster the page is moving, the more pronounced the blur effect is going to be. Here we go. I kind of like this, and I'm going to remove this yellow line. I don't need it anymore. Here we go. So that's my page. And let's see the other one. So now the animation should stop here with the left, the right page ends and the left page starts. Now, if it looks like there's a little bit of a break there, there is, because we need to make sure that these elements start right there. So make sure you don't clip the animation off of it. So make sure that the starting frame is right there, and you can move everything backwards like this. So now as soon as this one ends, this other one begins. So when you're doing this animation, you don't really notice it. Look. But if there still seems to be like a break, you can go inside of the other one, and you also make sure that there is no gap in there. It may be hard to adjust if the snapping is on. So you can go to timeline snapping and turn off one of these media edges, or maybe the playhead. Turn off the snapping of the playhead. So now you can move stuff more precisely. You cannot zoom in too close, I'm afraid. So there it is. I'm actually going to ungroup the right side page and just make sure that everything is nice on their own track. Okay, so if you want to stay organized, of course, you can give names to these tracks to make sure you know what these are. Okay, so now they're much closer together. So let's see. One thing I forgot, and you notice probably that I need to turn this animation to be linear easing, all of them, right? Because they need to move at a constant speed so that the separation between them doesn't appear. It's not so apparent. So there we go. Straight, and the page flips at the same speed. Let's watch this again. Beautiful. When you design this, you must make sure that the top of the page here, it doesn't come out of the top of your screen, right? Because you don't want to clip this book, okay? Cool. Hey, this is nice. This is looking nice. Now, we need to look at how can we reuse this, okay? So another thing you want, of course, a flip book isn't a flip book unless when you pick one page, it starts to move, you can see the other page right underneath, right? Because that's the whole idea. So one thing you want to do is just group the left and the right. Control group, and you have two groups now. And you can actually now rename them so that, you know, this is right, and right click and rename, and this is left. So we know which one is which, okay? They're still working fine. The only thing that Camtasia does, as you've seen, if I select this, of course, you can see that the clipping, the group is created, clipped to the boundaries of whatever it thinks the object is. this is horrible. So what you want to do is right click on the object, resize group to canvas size. There you go. And that could be a problem. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. You see what happens? Now the animation doesn't start properly. The reason for that is that Camtasia, when you group objects, it creates a different canvas inside of those groups. So what I mean by this is, if 90 degrees for me was perfectly vertical, inside of the group it may not be. So you need to be careful what you're doing with your objects, because as soon as you group it and move it, it's no longer going to be vertical in the middle, right? So look, I'm gonna completely mess this up by moving it. So now look, the animation is ending. It should be 90 degrees, but it's not. The reason is it has moved because it considers that like a 3D sort of offset, 3D scene offset, whatever. And whatever is inside the group becomes the zero origin point. Really stupid. I don't know why this is happening. So let me just fix the problem by, look at this. Do you see? I have just destroyed my animation by grouping them. So ungroup and ungroup. So now everything should be untouched, right? So you need to be careful when you group stuff, you need to not move anymore the groups and the size of the group. So group again, there it is. See how stupid this is? It just messes everything up. So again, I have to ungroup, make sure everything's animated properly, and then group it again. And then it becomes, yeah, I think I've just found another bug in Camtasia. You notice that now this is the center of the 3D space, and this is the edge, which means 90 is different. So the solution to this is this. We need to make sure that, because we want to reuse these pages on different pages of the flipbook, and we don't want them to be completely berserk every time we change them. So the solution is to resize the group to the canvas size, and then go inside the group and adjust the animation angles. So let me show you. Here we go. Right click on both groups, resize group to canvas size, and resize group. And look what happens. I mean, look, I'm at the end of the animation. I'm in the middle of the animation. Right click, resize group to canvas size. You notice how the offset shifts? So now it looks good. And this one looks good here. Right? So don't touch it. But if it is horrible, if you go inside, if it turns out that after you group it and after you resize it, it no longer works perfectly because the offset is off, you need to go inside the group and adjust the starting point and the ending points with different angles. So what was maybe 90 degrees before would be like 85 or something, just to make sure that it is at the top. But if you use everything in the center, and this is why I started with everything in the center, it's easier to manage, right? So let's make sure that I'm renaming this now. Again, for the third time. No, that's wrong. That's rename group right. And rename group left. Okay, so that's my right side page. There we go. And it animates. And it becomes the left side page. And it animates. So here's the nice stuff. I want a different image on the left page, of course, because I have come in here and that's my page is done. And I want a different picture here. Great. We can use the quick properties in Camtasia to achieve this. Click on the left image group, and you can see here for now you just change the rectangle color of the little beam of light. That's by default. But actually, I want to go in to open the quick property editor right here, and I want to say I want the image to be changeable. So I'm adding both images. The reason I have both, you remember when I did it, because we were copying the image as a mask, and link these two using these buttons there. And let's rename this to image. Now the image is part of my customizable properties. I'm actually going to go back in and I'm going to remove the callout because I don't care for that. I don't want to change the color of the light beam anyway. But you can do it, by the way, if you want to. So there it is, my image. Save your project. And now let me show you one cool thing. Let's suppose on the left page, I want to put this picture with this family at the sunset, right? So I'm just going to put that down here and just click on the image on your hard drive and drag it on top of this image here. There it is. And because the image is the same size, it is now replaced perfectly, as you can see. And we are retaining all that glossiness, all the blurriness, and all the darkening and the lightening as it moves there. So look, now page 1, page 2 becomes the new page. Isn't that cool? That's quite cool. Let's do the same on the right side image. Click on the quick properties and link these two images together and call them image. And actually go back and remove the callout. Now, if it helps you, if you group these together, you're going to have two of them, right? So you can actually give them different names. You can call it left or right image, right? So this is right image, okay? So you know which image is going to be where when you replace it. Same on this one, the left one. Let's click on the quick properties and call this one left image. So now I know when I have these in a group, so just for example, I'm selecting both of them and I'm creating a whole flip book. Control G again, they become available in this group now. So I can see here, right image, left image. I still have this call out, which I can take it out from here as well, but I can actually know which image goes where, right? So ungroup it because I don't want to do this right now. Save it. So here we go. I have a complete motion left and right. I'm sorry it took so long to do this, but now we are moving on to the interesting part. So just to show you one trick, before we go further, you may want to go inside of this one and you want to put a marker where the animation starts. Why I'm saying this, look, I'm clicking here and I'm adding a marker. Let's call it start. And I can add another one if you want here, just there, end. And any markers you add inside of a group are available outside of the group so you can see what's going on. So if I go outside, you can see these two markers that I added. Why am I doing this? Because although you're going to put the pages right after the other, one after the other, left and right, you want to still see when the animation, the flipping animation is going to start. The reason is when you're going to have more pages, you're going to be able to tell where to put the next page so that it doesn't show like there's no page there as soon as the movement starts, right? So what I mean by that is, let's go inside of the left one. And of course, the start of the animation is a bit too far away here. So I'm going to just keep cutting some of these frames and move everything there. So now the animation starts here. It doesn't really matter, one frame or two. So here we go, start marker, and the end of the frame animation is there, end. So now save and go outside, and you can see now I've got my start and end, start and end. Let's see if everything still works fine. Still a bit of a gap in there. I can maybe reduce the length of this group just by this. I don't want to go over the line because then I'm going to have problems with the animation. There we go. That's better. So I don't know if you understood what happened here. Look, markers that you added inside of a group stay with the group as opposed to markers that you add on the timeline right there at the top, which just are fixed. And these markers are fixed inside the group, but outside of the group, they move with the group. So that's quite cool because let's suppose now I want to say, well, I have one page, but as soon as I start animating, I want to put another right page that shows up underneath, right? So I'm going to go in here and say, well, okay, under page on the right, I'm just going to insert a new track. Copy the right page, copy, and I'm going to go and start and paste it. So you can see now the starting animation marker is right there, but this is what I'm interested in. When does the top page animation start? Right there, which means my right page needs to exist here, because if it doesn't, look, let me just show you, it starts to flip and I can't see anything underneath. And it doesn't look like my flipbook has any more pages. But if I bring this in, you can see the other page in there. And of course, I'm going to go to my hard drive. I'm going to select this, actually, the second page, go to my hard drive and put a different image in there. Let's put this one, right? Drag it in there. That's my right side page now. It's got a different picture in there, and you can see the other picture shows up and stays there. Now, here's another thing. How do I start the third one? Well, you need to put it underneath, not above. Why am I saying this? Look, this is the left page. And if I put the one on the top, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to start it right here where the right side animation stops, you're going to see now it's on top of the page on the right, which it cannot be there. It always needs to be down. So as you add more tracks with more pages, the right pages, so this is one thing to remember, the pages on the right need to go down, 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 and the pages on the left need to go up, up, up. So this is the left page. If I want to put a second left page, copy the left page, paste it, it has to come on the top. And I know it looks like mayhem in here right now, but the starting and ending of the animation on the left page, again, has to be there. So you can make sure that you always have stuff remaining on the left before you start something else. And here's another thing. You always want your start and end of your right and left to match, right? So if you have hard time deciding where does my left page have to start, well, it has to start where the right one ends. So right there. Or in my case, right there. That's where the animation on this, the left stops, and then that's where it starts, and that's right there has to be. Okay, so right now, look, you see, perfect transition between the right and the left page, right? So if we're adding another one, copy and paste, again, put it at the top. Where does that have to be? At the end of the right side animation, right there. Okay, so technically now I should have a very seamless flipbook with all the pages just sitting there, and now it's the end of my flipbook, right? So if I resize these tracks, you notice how it looks. So if it bothers you, you can move all of them one frame up and like this, so that the starting and ending of the first one is also on a separate track if you want, so they match with the start. So it's okay for them to overlap a little bit. If it makes it hard for you to move, it's because of the snapping. So there you go. Now the transition in here is even smoother because there's really not much frames left in between. There you go. So as you notice, the right pages all go down and the left pages all go up. If I make more room here, you can kind of see how things are organized. And I know that those markers are kind of confusing because there's so many of them right now, but they do help you set it up. So let's say I want to add another set of pages. Very easy. I go on the right page, copy and paste. And I want to make sure I introduce a new track below. Bring that in here and match it with the start of the animation. That's all you need to do. So as soon as my animation starts, I can already see the next page. So it needs to be there when the animation starts. And of course, at the end of the right side animation comes the left page. So go to the top, copy that, paste, which I already have one there. So I want to put it there and above. Right there. So you see the left page all the way there starts at the end of that right page. Kind of confusing maybe, I don't know, but look, you're just going left, left, up, and right down. So there you go. That's your flipbook right there. I mean, it looks crazy on the timeline, but it all works perfectly fine. So of course you're going to see the same images now, but you can now go and change the pages. So let's save. And let's say, okay, you know what? The first page, I want it to be the cover. Fair enough. Select that on the timeline. That's your first page. Open your folder and say, let's choose this one. Place it in there. Boom. Because it's the same size, it falls right into place. Now you go, what's my second page? Okay, the first page gone. The left side, I'm happy with these two. Let's move on. Another set of images. Now these are repeated. So I'm going to put this picture. Make sure you select the one you want first. Yeah. So you're selecting the one at the playhead, left and right. Yeah, left and right. Left. Let's replace the left one with this. There it is. And the right one with this one. Here you go. It always changes the preview image here with the one that you're changing. So that's fine. Here we go. Right? Again, they repeat in here. So I'm going to just swap them with... I'm running out of pictures anyway. So I'm just going to put this one again. And for the right one, I'm going to... You can always also click on this and change. It's, you know, Camtasia is going to ask you to browse for an image. So I'm going to use this one with the old people again. Here we go. And finally, my last page and my cover should be the last one. So I'm bringing back the cover. Okay, there you go. There you have it. So I'm stopping with the cover right there. So now my flipbook has a variety of pictures anyway. So let's play the whole thing. Maybe the starting is kind of long, so you can shorten that. Just make sure you don't cut anything that is inside of those markers. So that's your way of changing when something starts and when something stops and how long it is going to be, right? There it is. That's my back of the back cover. Now, here we go. So there we have it. This is my flipbook. Make sure you save. And if you go very, very fast, you're going to see the flipbook changing. And of course, you have a lot of freedom in here. So for example, you can make this into a group. So you're done editing. So what I recommend is you add these to your library, the left side and the right side. And if you design a flipbook with a few pages, like this one's got 2, 4, 6, 8 pages, including the covers, right? So what happens is if you add these to your library, each one, the left and the right, they will be functioning on their own. But if you group it, and this is the beautiful stuff. So when you buy the asset from me, the one that I built already is going to have a few predefined flipbooks. But if you don't, then if you create a flipbook, you see now Camtasia exposes all of the pages, all of the images in there for you. So you can easily just add this one to your library and then just go and swap the pages out. And if you give them proper labels, because you can still edit this, by the way, so you can see which image is which, and you can decide, okay, this is page 1, page 2, page 3. You just replace the names in there, and then they will be very easy to replace. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and done. You just drag your images on top of this, and you're finished, really. And another thing, you can probably just put this, and it may, make it look more realistic, right? So what I love to do is I have this picture here of a sort of a wooden tabletop or whatever. Bring that into your project and then put it on the bottom on a separate track. Just add it there and spread it around like that, and then make it larger to fill the whole screen. And now it looks like it's sitting on top of a tabletop, right? So it looks nice. And let's give it another go at making it even more interesting. Remove all the tracks, make some room there, and let's make some room. Here we go. So now this looks very nice. Look, the pages are flipping, and you can see these little lines in here. That's where the markers or the media starts and ends. So you kind of see where the pages change, right? Where the animation starts and ends, right? These are the markers showing up. So that's your page. But okay, it kind of looks a little flat. So what I like to do is let's add a drop shadow to the whole thing. So what you can do is just go to the visual effects, use the drop shadow, add it to the book, and you see now it's kind of sitting. Okay, the difference is going to be it's going to have a little shadow as it moves up, but it's not very noticeable. You can actually make that more interesting by actually creating a shadow for every page inside of the group. But I'm not going to make this video any longer, but that actually will make it show like the shadow moves with the page and it's flat on the table. So kind of a different effect there. But look, this is nice. You can of course adjust this, you know, put it down there and maybe make it a bit darker or more blurry. So just to give it a bit of depth. Look, so now it's sitting on the table. Maybe it's not the best shadow. It needs to be not so blurry. There you go. It's not floating. So there you go. So another thing is like, okay, we said we kind of like the light coming in. So a new effect in Camtasia 2022 is the spotlight effect. So that's nice, because if I add this to my tabletop, you can see now I can actually control where the light is coming from. So let's assume it's coming from like this here, and spread that, and change that to be all the way across there, and maybe reduce the beam and like that. Give it a bit of a vignette effect if you want. So this one looks really nice now. It looks like this is really on the table. See? And to make things more interesting, I mean, you can add an animation to this particular group and you can have it sort of zoom in, right? So you just have it zoom in there a bit like that. And you can see as it moves, it kind of zooms in. And if you want, you can add another animation in here that makes it kind of show up on the screen from, rotate it a bit and bring it in from there. Like someone is throwing it on the table and then it starts to animate. Maybe my animations are a bit slow, but anyway, you get the point, and you can see it increasing in size, which is not the most realistic thing though, but it kind of, you know, grows like that, you know. So yeah, I'm not crazy about this increasing the size animation, unless you are actually increasing the background as well. That's interesting. So add this animation to both and expand it to be the same length. So now go to the end and zoom everything in. And in fact, you can actually rotate them a little bit, right? So you just go here and you kind of use the arrow keys to kind of slant things over. So now it looks nice because the background also changes. Yeah, a lot of creativity there you can do to make things more organic, more realistic, you know, like not, you know, it's not so boring. And just to give you some homework, you can actually create much more with these. For example, you can add labels, annotations inside of every page, like in the corners, top left, bottom right, whatever. And you can make those customizable and add text like caption for your pictures. And you can have those part of the animation with the page, just flipping the page and the text comes with them. It's very easy to do those and just add those animations. And again, changing the center of the rotation, yeah, to keep things along the edge. And yeah, that's kind of it. You know, I kind of like what this, you know, looks like. And of course, if you want to buy it already made by me, feel free to click the link in the description to go and get this one and use it for yourself and create, you know, business, flipbook animation albums, wedding albums, whatever you feel like. So that's quite nice, isn't it? So that's a nice animated flipbook. Thank you for watching. I do know that this was a very long video, but yeah, I hope you learned a bunch of stuff. And in thinking in 3D, dealing with Camtasia's quirks and making some interesting stuff, you don't need After Effects for that. Of course, you can do these in After Effects and other software, but this is nice. This is customizable, and you can use it in all of your projects whenever. So Thank you again for your time. If you don't have Camtasia, feel free to click the link in the description for an upgrade or to buy it. And that is an affiliate link. It would help support my channel and all the cool videos that I'm making. So if you do like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, and let me know what you would like to see next time. See you on the next one.